here is the NFL Iceberg. 18-1 Patriots. Wow, a lot of these entries have to do with the Patriots. The Miami Dolphins remain the only NFL team since the league merger to finish with a perfect season, finishing 17-0, winning all of their regular season games, playoff games, and of course, the Super Bowl.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
The only team to get close to this feat was the 2007 Patriots. This was one of the best Patriots teams of all time, winning all of their regular season games, winning both of their playoff games, and heading to Super Bowl 42 with a record of 18-0. Despite their undefeated record, in the Super Bowl, they were met with a shocking upset in which they lost to the 13-6 New York Giants by a score of 17-14. This is considered one of the greatest upsets in NFL history. The Giants weren't even winners of their own division. They made the playoffs as a wild card team and had to beat 3 teams on the road to even qualify for the Super Bowl. It was incredible and considered to be one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. And despite winning all their games and being one of the greatest teams in not just Patriots history, but in all of NFL history, the New England Patriots would still come short and lose the one game that mattered the most all season. DPI Inconsistency. This is a reference to the defensive pass interference penalty. The NFL rulebook states it is a pass interference by either team when any act by a player more than 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage significantly hinders an eligible player's opportunity to catch the ball. On offense, this is typically when they push off of a defender in order to gain more separation, and on defense, it is typically when the defender makes contact with the player before the ball reaches them. The controversy comes from fans realizing how inconsistently this penalty is called. You'll see instances of obvious defensive pass interference that goes uncalled, one famous example that we will cover later on in the Iceberg, and there are instances of no pass interference and yet a penalty is called regardless. It is one of the most missed and simultaneously most poorly called penalties you'll see happen as you watch the NFL. Some people theorize that the NFL uses this penalty to rig outcomes for games that they'd like to see happen in order to strengthen narratives and boost ratings and whatnot, but I don't know about all that. This did briefly lead to a rule change for the 2019 season, in which teams were now able to challenge a pass interference on the play. However, this rule quickly led to longer breaks between in-game play and was quickly abused by many head coaches, so the rule was removed indefinitely. The Washington football team. I'm sure many of you already know about this one. One of the most historic franchises in the NFL was the Washington Redskins franchise. However, public pressure has always persisted with owner Dan Snyder to change the name of the franchise due to many viewing it as offensive. The public pressure would be so significant that it would be announced that the name would change for the 2020 season. Changed to the Washington football team. Yep, they just decided to not have a name, and despite it being a placeholder name, it's still just ridiculous to think about. The logo would be retired and the uniforms would be changed to a more generic look. A very generic W logo for Washington would be used as they took up this moniker. And they would play under this moniker for 2 whole seasons. Finally, for the 2022 season, the new official team name would be changed to the Washington Commanders. They would receive a new uniform design and a W logo that is significantly less generic, but still pretty generic.
Washington Redskins, go f*** yourself.
Bottlegate. Also referred to as the Bottle Game, Bottlegate refers to a game that was played on December 16, 2001 between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns. With a minute and 8 seconds remaining in the game, the Jaguars were leading 15-10, with the Browns facing a 4th and 2 on the Jaguars' 12-yard line. Browns quarterback Tim Couch took the snap and threw a short 3-yard pass to Quincy Morgan for a first down. Although Morgan had appeared to have bobbled the football, officials had ruled it a completed pass. Couch hurried the offense to the line of scrimmage and spiked the ball with 48 seconds remaining, after which the officials announced that they would review the 4th down conversion play earlier. They later overturned the original call, ruling it an incomplete pass and a turnover on downs, in which the Jaguars would take over possession and win the game. This was controversial because it appeared that the Browns had spiked the ball, which counts as a play, and after a play has already occurred, you can't go back and review it to change the call. But this is not what makes the game famous. After hearing the refs overturn the previous play, the Browns fans that packed the stadium proceeded to throw all of their empty beer bottles onto the field in response to the call. This caused a huge mess of debris on the field.
And it's getting ugly here in Cleveland.
Despite there still being 48 seconds left, the officials called the game due to the field no longer being able to be played on.
And now they're going to call
That
the
is
game.
the end of the game.
Unbelievable. Now they call the game.
Despite this, and I can't believe this, the NFL contacted the officiating team and informed them that they did not have the authority to end a game early. They would be forced to finish the game, so officials had to go back and tell players that were in the locker rooms, many of whom were already undressing and showering, that they were required to go back out onto the field and finish the game. By the time all the players and officials returned to the field, over 20 minutes had gone by, and after 2 kneel downs by the Jaguars, the game officially ended 15-10 in the Jaguars' victory. Referee of the game, Terry McCauley, argues that the call to review the play came from the booth before the Browns had spiked the ball, despite it not appearing that way to the fans. The 2018 NFC Championship Game. Oh boy, here we go. So we just covered the inconsistencies of pass interference penalties being called. This is probably the most famous example of one. The 2018 NFC Championship Game pinned up the Los Angeles Rams and the New Orleans Saints for the right to advance to Super Bowl 53. Late in the fourth quarter, the game was tied up 20-20, with the Saints having the ball on the Rams' 13-yard line with a chance to seal the game away, with only a minute and 49 seconds left. On a crucial 3rd down and 10 play, Saints quarterback Drew Brees attempted to throw a pass to receiver Tommy Lee Lewis, which fell incomplete and caused a 4th down. This forced the Saints to simply settle for a field goal to go up 23-20, and it gave the Rams a chance to win the game. On the play, it had appeared pretty obvious that Rams defensive back Nickel Robbie Coleman had knocked Lewis to the ground before he had ever had the chance to catch the ball, which would be considered a defensive pass interference penalty. Had it been properly called, it would have given the Saints a guaranteed 1st down, and from there, they would have been able to presumably kill all the remainder of the game clock and kick what would have been then a game-winning field goal. Instead, the pass interference went uncalled, and the Rams managed to get the ball back. The no call was super controversial due to how seemingly obvious and apparent it was, and had it been called, the Saints would have inevitably been able to seal the game there. Of course, it was made more controversial because it did grant the Rams a chance to win, in which they were able to tie the game up 23-23 and eventually win it in overtime in a 26-23 victory. This no call enraged head coach Sean Payton, and as I previously mentioned, it would lead to a rule change the next season, in which teams would be able to challenge pass interference penalties in order to appease the outraged fans. Even after it was all said and done, I do believe the Rams had done enough to win the game, especially since they outperformed the Saints in overtime. However, it cannot be denied that the Rams would not have been able to win without that second chance granted to them by the refs. Ref betting. There actually isn't much to this one as I originally thought, but it's just a conspiracy theory between some NFL fans that NFL refs take part in betting on games that they are officiating. I thought there would be some substantial examples, however I couldn't really find any concrete instances of this happening. The theory exists mainly to try and explain the many bad calls that happen pretty often, including the examples that we just mentioned. While the NFL does have rules that prohibit officials from taking part in any sort of gambling, this doesn't stop some fans from speculating that it happens and that it might explain some controversial calls throughout the league's history. But I'm pretty sure it's all speculative.